I'm going to show you how to cost out your recipes with Shop & Cook Pro software. I have prepared two recipes, one for sauce Vierge, the other one for grilled tuna with sauce Vierge and spinach that uses the first recipe. I copy these recipes to the clipboard and add them to the software by using the clip button. The software is now analyzing the recipes. Here, we are going to add them to the main cookbook with the category example. Here are the two new recipes. The software has automatically recognized the ingredients and the quantities. Here the recipe grilled tuna with sauce Vierge and spinach refer to the second recipe sauce Vierge. Now you can see here that the number of servings and the yield of the recipe is missing. We're going to edit the recipe to fix this. Number of serving 12 and the portion size 10 ounces. This field represents usually the portion size, but when there is no number of servings specified, it represents the total yield of the recipe. We can also check the shopping items to see if the ingredients have been correctly linked. Here you can see a problem. The tuna steaks has been linked to tuna canned, which is wrong. So you can select the ingredient, click on the magic wand button to repair the line. We could click on the database button and add tuna steaks to the database, or we can click on the arrow to select a better item in the database. Here, fish shellfish tuna. We're going to select it. You want to add the link of tuna steak to tuna to the dictionary? Yes, so that next time it will recognize that tuna steaks should be linked to the grocery item tuna. Please note also that next to spinach there is cooked written. It means that the software recognized that the cooked weight of spinach has to be used, which is different from the raw weight. This is important to make sure that spinach is correctly costed. Now we can save the recipe. This is the recipe for sauce Vierge. Let's click on the costing tab. As you can see, there is already a total food cost and a suggested price. If you are in the US, the software comes already with some predefined cost data to help you get started with the software. The cost data is stored in the main database here. However, if you are serious about recipe costing, you cannot use the predefined cost data. It's important that you input your actual food costs. So if you are a new user of the software and you have not yet input your own cost data, I would like you to do the following. Open the costing menu and select Clear Cost Database. This will erase the default cost data. Click OK. Now the cost information has disappeared. Let's open again the recipe. All the ingredients now are listed in green, meaning that they lack the cost information. Here I have prepared a list with the cost of all the ingredients of both recipes. Now, of course, if you are costing these recipes yourself, you should input your own cost information. We are going to input the missing cost information by clicking on the magic wand button next to each ingredient. Olive oil. So you input the quantity, the unit of the quantity, and the cost corresponding to this quantity. Once it's input, it will be known, of course, for all the recipes using olive oil. You only need to do it once for each ingredient. Once you are done with the sauce Vierge, do the same thing with the other recipe. You only need to do it on the ingredients in green. The software knows already the cost for the other ingredients. And here we are done. The software needs to know three things in order to cost accurately an ingredient. It needs to know the price of the ingredient for a given quantity. It needs to know the quantity of the ingredient inside the recipe, and it needs to be able to convert from the quantity corresponding to the price to the quantity required in the recipe. When the software doesn't know the quantity or doesn't know how to convert the quantity, it displays the ingredient in blue. Here, for example, for garlic, the price was input for 1 head of garlic, but the recipe requires 7 cloves. In order to convert from clove to head, the software needs to know the weight of a head of garlic and the weight of a clove. To input this information, you click again on the magic wand button. The software knows which information it needs and it's going to ask it to you. Here, it asks you the weight of a head of garlic. So you need to take one of your head of garlic and measure its weight. Or for more accuracy, you take a bunch of head and measure the average weight of one head. In my case, I have a weight of 2.2 ounces. If you are living in a country that uses metric unit, you can select in the preferences to input the weight in gram instead of ounces. The software opened the nutritional information for garlic, where the unit information is stored. You can see here that the software already knows the average weight of 1 clove of garlic. You can save the modification, and now the garlic is displayed in black and its cost information is displayed here. You do the same thing for the remaining ingredients in blue. For basil, the price was given for 1 bunch, but the recipe requires 20 leaves. In order to convert from leaves to bunch, the software needs to know the weight of a bunch and the weight of a leaf. So we click on the magic wand button, and here it's asking the weight of a bunch. So you need to take a bunch of basil and measure its weight to give it to the software. In my case, it's 1.4 ounces. Here, you see that the software already knows the average weight of 1 leaf of basil. So you just save the unit conversion information, and fresh basil has turned black and its cost has been added to the recipe. Finally, do the same for chili pepper. The software needs to know the weight of 1 small chili pepper, which is about 1.2 ounces in my case. You save the information. Chili pepper has turned green, meaning that the software still needs to know the price information that we didn't input before. We click on the magic wand button and input the price, which is in my case $1 for half a pound. Salt, pepper and hot sauce remains in blue. It's because the quantity of this ingredient is not given in the recipe. If it's important for you to include these ingredients in the cost estimate, you need to edit the recipe and input the quantity. Let's look more in detail at the cost analysis. We can open in the costing menu the detail of the costing. The first column contains the ingredients of the recipe. The second column, the quantity as specified in the recipe. The third column is the quantity converted into the unit of the price information. The fourth column is the quantity corrected for the waste. The next column is the cost per unit as specified in the price information for the ingredient. The next column is the cost of the ingredient in the recipe, that is, the quantity with weight times the cost per unit. And finally, the last column is the cost per serving of each ingredient. At the bottom here, you have the total food cost per serving, and the suggested price for the total recipe, and the suggested price per serving. The price suggestion uses the default profit margin that is defined in the preference. You can also set a profit margin on a recipe basis. In the case of spinach, if you remember, the software had detected that the quantity in the recipe was for cooked spinach. It was 1.5 kilogram. It has here converted 1.5 to 1.58 kilogram, which is the estimated weight of raw spinach you need to cook 1.5 kilo of spinach. As an example of correction for waste, if you look at the line for tomato, you can see that the quantity of 5.71 ounces has been converted to 6.20 ounces, including the waste, that is the stem and core of the tomatoes. You can set the waste for each ingredient in the nutritional information window of the ingredient. These corrections are automatically added by the software. The ingredients of the sauce Vierge recipe have been automatically included in the cost of the grilled tuna recipe. If you want, you can hide the details by clicking on the arrow here. You can also uncheck some ingredients to see the effect on the suggested price. For example, if you remove spinach, you can see that the price has changed by about $2. Also, at the top of the window, you have a scaling tool. For example, by changing the portion size, you can also see how it would affect the final price. That's it for recipe costing.